Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, Secret Friends, welcome back to Code 47. This is our Star Trek podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 171. I am Charlie Carden, your Trek Lord of West Michigan, joined by my number one sidekick on this show. I hate to say sidekick. That sounds really disrespectful. My apologies. This is Peter Stein. Peter, hello.
Hey, I mean, sidekick works. Robin's great, I guess.
I mean, you're not Robin and my Batman. Hopefully not the Jason Todd Robin. Ouch. But anyway, we talk about Star Trek here, and I'm already talking about Batman. But thanks for tuning in. We do have a great show for you as usual. We're getting into a weird period. We did find out, obviously, and we'll talk about it in news, that we have a launch date for the 4th season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. But that show, much like other Star Trek productions out there, is no longer being produced. So we're entering, as we talked about in our last episode, a desert of Star Trek production with... I sound like you're saying it like you're talking at a brewery and you're like, well, this beer has hints of something. We have hints of a Star Trek film that is being produced, but that is the only thing being talked about right now, especially since there was, as we talked about in our last episode, not only a dismantling of the physical sets at the Star Trek stage. It's so ironic they call it the Star Trek stage in the Metro Toronto area, but then there has also been, Peter, I don't know if you've caught this out on there on socials the last few days, big auctions where they're getting rid of all the Discovery. They haven't got into the Strange New World stuff, but they're getting rid of Discovery for good. Not that anyone has entertained that Discovery is coming back.
I mean, to be fair, usually most productions have like gobs of uniforms and props. Yeah. So getting rid of because if you've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff from Next Generation, it's like, here's our big hero uniforms, 10 for one character. So it's
or they had just racks and racks of the jumpsuits.
Yeah. So getting rid of some of the stuff, I don't necessarily it's a little weird, I guess. So soon, but it's not that unusual.
Yeah, it just fit with a combination of kind of everything else.
Yeah, I get the optics, but I'm just saying they're not getting rid of everything. They're just getting rid of some stuff.
Yeah, very, very true. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're getting back into the random episode, or random SODE, if you prefer, with a selection from Star Trek Voyager, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then we're keeping our series of top 5, bottom 5 going in sequence with Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So we're going to do all that stuff and have a good time talking about it. But first and foremost, or second in this case, I'd love to talk about the wonderful people over on our Secret Friends Unite squad over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, where you can get exclusive shows. Peter and I are very excited about winding down Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, and that show's going to take a little pause. But the Bad Movies podcast that I make with my wife April is going to become a monthly show. That's going to happen summer getting into fall. So pretty excited about that. We would love it if we had time to keep all of it going, but it gets to be a little challenging when it's just the two of us, but we still want to provide some great value. All of our shows come out early on the Patreon. Also special Discord benefits as well. This is the way it works. Your first week is free. You can also just follow us for free. I would love it if people just followed us for free. They keep up with what we're doing and just kind of give us some feedback that way. But you can have a first week with content for free. Your first month can then be half off. And then you it can stay monthly for as little as $2 a month. So we would love to have you on board. Check us out. There are hundreds of hours of great programming, bonus programming going back that we'd love to have you check out. Patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, and we would love to see you there. So, all right. Well, I'm talking about the desert of programming that we have, but we're not there yet. We're still and a thinner layer of salt water before we hit the rocky shoals. But Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 4 is going to debut this July. We got a drop date at the CCXP event in Mexico
July
City.
23.
On July 23 is when we're going to have that. We'll have a 10-episode season, which will run Thursdays through September 24th. So we got only a minute-long trailer. Some of the footage kind of unremarkable, but some of it was kind of crazy. Dinosaurs were featured in this. We'll have this linked in the show notes. So if you've not seen it, please tune in.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's one of those John Hammond moments. We have a T-Rex.
Yeah, right. They've got a T-Rex. But yeah, it was Rebecca Romaine, Ethan Peck, Celia Rose Gooding, and Paul Wesley were all at this Mexico event talking about this, and then this does drop. I'm not going to lie. Not super psyched to see more Kirk. I just feel like they maybe ought to give it a bye-bye. But he's in there. We also did get a listing of episode titles. The first kickoff episode is going to be a Western. Woo! I just, it may be hokey, but I'll take it. Kirk featured heavily in. We just got a preview of episode 1 and 2. Second episode will be Kirk being back on the ship, and we have a picture of him giving Spock a big hug. It's funny, in the clip they showed, you show Kirk hugging him, and it's a shoulder shot. But in this, it's a shot kind of from the butt up, and you see that Spock is in fact returning the hug. So that's good. That's pre first Kolinar Spock, which I feel like he has to do a Kolinar between. The sound of Kolinar sounds like you're getting a colonic. I feel like he has to do something to divorce himself from all of the out of control emotions that we've seen him display in the series before we get to TOS. If we're doing a good job maintaining continuity, I mean, what do you think?
I think they're going to sidestep it because Kolinar is only supposed to really be done once.
It's a one and done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we get a great clip of Martin Quinn as Scott. He say, "Hey, be sure where you beam me in somewhere with a gravity and oxygen." Yeah, right.
And it's a cadet at the transporter controls. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, so I definitely think there's some excitement to come. I will freely admit I've lost some of my luster for the show after season 3. We definitely had some episodes that not only rubbed us the wrong way, but certainly a lot of our guests that we had along the way, including Sean Ferrick, there were episodes that they really didn't care for, and the fan base did not necessarily react as favorably to things in season 2, even that I found super gimmicky. Like we've talked about how I just couldn't stand the musical episode, but it's so big with so many people. This show has, in a lot of ways, branched off and done a lot of things, but in some ways, I think they've kind of pushed the envelope too far. I don't know. I mean, what are your overall thoughts about this? Are you fired up about this? I'm excited to get new content, but the bittersweetness, knowing that they've kind of killed it off, and poor Starfleet Academy before it ever even really got a chance to flower, makes me sad. I don't know. How are you feeling?
I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I mean, it's always strange when it's like, we're going to cut it off without letting a full season play out. At least, I mean, this season I think is still getting its full run, but
it's 10 here and 6 for season 5, which will be next year.
Yeah. So I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I've not been shy about the fact that I don't like how they've been using Spock at all.
Yeah.
So I'm hesitant to be like, this is going to be good way to show the friendship between Spock and Kirk in a way that's healthy and normal, because I'm not convinced that's going to happen. Yeah. And we have another screenshot of Chapel and Spock, and I'm like, what more knife twisting are we going to do with this?
Just let it go. And again, and it's just so very contrary to what we see. And again, I did a TOS sort of rewatch recently. I had it on in my office for 2 months and was watching it. And the Chapel Spock interaction was not. It was her longing for him and him sprinkling, like in a mock time, sprinkling a little attention to her way and just seeing her. Ooh. Now, and the power dynamic in this is totally upside down, and it's really made me hate the character. I talked about that a lot during season 3,
and it's just,
my disdain.
Yeah, and the other thing is I'm still not 100% sold that it's a great idea to keep bringing in TOS characters.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. I love the original series very, very much.
Me too. I like it more than I did probably before I did this most recent rewatch. I was really all about it.
Yeah, it's great. But because we keep bringing in legacy characters and then we keep changing them in ways that don't always make sense.
Right.
That's where like a lot of, aside from the gimmick stuff, that's where like Strange New Worlds loses me a bit. Yeah. Is like we keep like, here's this new thing of, here's Kirk doing this thing, but he has no references to Kodos or the Farragut or any of the stuff that would have been relevant to whatever situation they're in at the moment. And so there's like big pieces of characters that are missing.
Like they're almost trying to keep it
under
accessible.
wraps.
Yeah, they're trying to keep it a little bit more like, okay, I can access this character because I know these things about Kirk.
And it's like, I know Kirk now only through Strange New Worlds. It's like, well, if the thing is, since we know stuff about Kirk, like having those sprinkled in there does help at least assuage some of us legacy fans our concerns. That's like, do you know the character? And so that's like, not to beat a dead horse, but like that's kind of my problem with a lot of it. And so like I'm curious to see what they're doing. Like a Western looks interesting.
Yeah, agree. I love the Western episode. One of my favorite episodes of TOS was Spectre of the Gun that I talked about. Loved it.
The first time I saw
North Star from Enterprise, one of my favorites.
I was wondering if they're going to go back to North Star because of the pictures, but then it's like it's something else.
Yeah.
The landscape looks a little wrong. The funny thing is someone's like, oh, it takes place on Mars because it's Valles Marineris. No, there's structures that are not on Mars. Floating rocks are not on Mars. I'm sorry, guys. That's not where we are.
So it's going to be something new and different. So
So like referencing the Valley of the Mariner, sure, it's a nice Mars reference. It's also Latin that not a lot of people know.
Right.
So it could also just be like, hey, it's a cool episode title, and we're going to have spacefarers. Great. So who knows? But yeah, I like that idea. I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do with episode 2 because we're going to be exploring Kirk again. And I'm with you on as much as I like Kirk, I don't really like you and I were talking pre-roll where like, you know, in Doctor Strange's second film, he got sidelined. It feels like Pike's getting sidelined in his own show. And it's like,
it's like, very much Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie, which if you've ever caught it in, I know you're not a huge Simpsons guy, but if you ever caught that in passing, there was an episode of The Simpsons where, Itchy and Scratchy is getting stale. That was, you know, the cartoon on The Simpsons. And so they introduced a ridiculous character, which of course Homer ended up voicing, that everyone hated immediately. Yeah. And it's led the way to memes that you've seen Poochie dying on his way back to his home planet. Yeah. Or he jumps in with a voice that's on Homer's that said, I have to go now. My home planet needs me. And they pulled the frame out. No Poochie died on his way back to his home planet. He very much and then Poochieing became a theory. Yeah, so like an added character. And in that same episode, they added some guy named Roy who was living with the Simpsons, and then at the end he leaves. So it's just an obvious gag like Cousin Oliver and the Brady Bunch, you know, where they stick in a character that it's like, well, we need, you know, our regular characters are boring as shit. Let's spice it up by throwing in this case, something that you do already know, which
random,
is just just to keep your focus on it. So we will find out come July 23, probably even a little bit, you know, sooner as the screeners come out. We'll have a chance to chat about that, but we'll be covering it as we have with previous seasons. We cover them 2 episodes at a time. We'll generally speaking have a guest. John from Screen Rant, who was with us on the last episode, will be our returning guest for the first 2. Set that up yesterday. And then you'll probably see the rest of the folks who we usually have on board.
Our menagerie.
Our regular menagerie. So, well, cool. All right, now let's jump into, so we'll wrap on that and we'll jump in to talk about our random episode. So we haven't talked about Voyager in a while. I don't feel like we've talked about Voyager. Maybe I'm wrong, and except for when we wrapped the show, and that was a while back, but this one was actually chosen a while back when I was setting this up. I reached out to people who are kind of regular collaborators with this. This one was actually chosen by our friend Kelly Gentner, who is from Wisconsin. We used to do cosplay stuff together. She used to do some Patreon stuff with it. We've kind of fallen out of touch, but I hope she's doing well. But she picked this episode at the time, and she's a huge Voyager fan. So I think I probably teed it up for her. I said, your series is Voyager. And then she did the roll. She rolled for a season. She rolled for an episode. And we ended up with, this is one we've not talked about in forever. This is season 1, episode 11, State of Flux. So to describe it, an unknown Voyager crew member secretly sends information to the Kazon. And if you're wondering who the hell the Kazon is, you're probably not alone wondering, because talk about a lack of being a memorable villain, but we'll get into that. So some details about the episode, and then we'll jump into our thoughts. Teleplay by Chris Abbott, story by Paul Robert Coyle, directed by Robert Shearer. Shearer is the name that I recognize out of those three. Yeah. I didn't put an air date on this, but this is episode 11, so pretty sure this aired in the spring of 1995 because the show itself started in January of 1995. So
April 10th.
April 10th. See, I was right. Look at it, almost exactly 31 years ago. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. All right. Well, let's jump into talking about how we feel about this episode. So, Peter, walk me through your State of Flux experience.
All right. So I had to double check that I had the right episode because.
I hope you did. Otherwise,
I did.
Okay,
yeah,
thank God.
But because the beginning of the episode, I remember the beginning of this episode very well for some weird reason.
You know, and I wrote that too. I wrote, "Hey, welcome to the generic hillside location shoot."
Well, it's the specific thing of like, we're looking for food. Hey, I found apples. No, these are poisonous. Here's Leola root. Tastes like shit. Like,
right.
That's
what I wrote.
Like
the birth of Leola, because this was our first reference. Because Neelix is like, "That's Leola root," and he hands one to Cody, and he bites it, and he goes, spits it out.
Yeah, it's like, this is nasty. And
then we had poor Joe Carey, who was an engineer that we never saw after season 1 until they brought him back to kill him up, like 5 episodes to the end of the series. This was his 15 minutes in season 1. He was in maybe 5 episodes. I mean, 5 of 15 episodes in that first season, 16 if you count the overflap. Or excuse me, 19 if you count the overflap, because they held back the last 4 episodes of season 1 and aired them in season 2 to fill out that season block. But opening, and
so we got the opening, and then it's like, okay, let's keep looking for food, and then there's it's not cloaked, it's like sensor reflective,
right? Back up on the ship, they're talking.
On the ship, they're like, "There's something following us," and they do a anti-proton burst, and they like, "Oh, that's a Kazon ship,"
right? Which is amazing because this is the next time we're seeing the Kazon after the series premiere, and we start to learn about the different sects, because even it's interesting, and I know there's in the fun facts that I have for after we get done talking about it. Tuvok goes, well, it does identify as a ship from the Kazon Nistrum, so it's like, maybe they either ran into him or Neelix had some kind of database that he shared with them.
Neelix did know something about the Kazon.
So so they would, but it's not really stated. So so they're getting ready to leave. They're like, "Yep, we got to get everybody out of there." Janeway tells they're like, "Where is everybody? Seska's missing." Yep. And we know Seska from previous episodes. She is one of the Maquis. She's B'Elanna's pal, and Harry says, well, where's Ensign Seska? And the Maquis ranks have always been a bit weird because they have that lozenge thing, which you do end up seeing in Lower Decks. So it's an ongoing thing that it wasn't invented for Voyager. It was just the first time we saw it. Obviously it existed as a provisional officer. It had the same kind of coloring as Pips.
Yeah. It's kind of weird though. I mean, we know why production wise and like these things happen, but it would have been fun if Wesley was wearing that back in.
You're right, yeah.
That's the pip he should have been wearing. But.
So Harry calls her Ensign Seska, and she wears a lozenge with one solid colored stripe, which would be an ensign, just like him. But she has her job during the brief time she was there was transporter chief, which you had Chief O'Brien, who was a lieutenant for a long time, but then it was always established he was always a enlisted crewman. And the same thing with Janice Rand in Star Trek the Motion Picture. Like, the person who runs the transporter is generally not an officer, except of course Scotty did it in the original series. So it was just kind of all over the place. It feels like being a transporter officer is like being an avionics tech, which my brother was in the Air Force. You know what I mean? It's his job for an enlisted person or a senior enlisted.
I mean, it does. I mean, based on like how TNG does it, because you had like that was how they got like celebrity cameos in the Next Generation a lot.
That would just be an ensign, like Mae Jemison,
ensign or lieutenant, and it would just like. They'd slap a couple pips on someone and throw them in there. So
there you go.
Canonically, you could just say it's like officer just wanted transporter duty to get away from whatever. You just stand there and push some buttons.
Yeah, not very often. So they, Chakotay goes and looking for her. He finds her in a cave. He goes to find her in a cave, but there's also a Kazon like nearby, and he gets shot in the shoulder whenever they beam up, and then that's the cold open.
Yep.
So when they beam back, Chakotay's in his quarters doing like hanging out, like recovering, and Seska brings him some soup, which is then revealed that she stole. And so he's super pissed at her, and he says, well, then you're on report and everybody lose rations. And he goes to stare at the window, and then she comes and hugs him from behind and gives an indication that they used to bang. But and she gives him this whole, oh my God, after all I've been through, you're gonna put me on report. And I'm like, this bitch reminds me of my ex-wife. So manipulative. You know what I mean? But he said, like, we tried it out and the shit just doesn't work out because, we're in a chain of command and blah, blah, blah. And he's very principled sometimes. But like Janeway is very principled sometimes. Yeah. It's just kind of what's going on.
Kind of a keyword in Voyager sometimes.
But this is when we get it, so we're getting into the Kazon. And again, they're just so wrong on so many different tiers. And it just, we learn a little bit late because you think, oh, how do these fucking rednecks have ships and things, but they can't figure out how to, and they can have a ship with artificial gravity and, faster than light travel, but they can't figure out a replicator or something.
Well, to be fair, the NX didn't have a replicator either. So like you can have stuff and then not have.
But even they seem so dumb. How can they?
They're not as dumb as the Packlids, but they're like 2 steps up almost. Right.
And it's later revealed in a season 2 episode that all of their stuff is stolen from this race that enslaved them called the Trabe, because there's an episode
that's true,
that. But I'm like, they just seem too stupid to operate a space vehicle. But you're right. I didn't think about the Packlids, and not even just like push buttons or move levers, but it's like, how do they fix something that gets broken? Well, that takes some skill, and they just seem really stupid. Where the Klingons, they have scientists, they have doctors and stuff, so
they just don't value it very highly.
But they do have them, because if they didn't have engineers and stuff, they wouldn't have ships that could fly around in space anyway, if everybody was just too dumb to operate one. So it's like, how do they have a fleet, or how do they have the one giant ship that we saw in the first episode that was overwhelming Voyager to the point that they had to sacrifice the Valjean, which was Chakotay's Maquis ship. So anyway, that really stuck in the crowd. They find a crippled Kazon ship as we continue to move away through space. And Janeway was like, well, we should really try to help them. We could use all the friends we get. And I'm like, damn, you're barking up the wrong tree.
It gives them a distress call. So
right. So they pick it up and they find Kazon are all melted into the walls, and some are dead. It's a gruesome. And there's this console they can't get at because it's surrounded by radiation. So we got to go back and figure out a thing in order to make sure we can get at it. And Seska's part of the team, but she's like, I'll go back and get it myself, which doesn't at all seem, suspicious.
Yeah. Well, it's before that they figure out there's a trace compound, and it's
from Voyager.
Yeah. They don't know right away, but they're like, this is Federation technology, and it's like, well, it could have come from somewhere, but
and of course, they don't know at this point that the Equinox is also in the Delta Quadrant. But as we know, the Equinox, which we meet at the end of season 5, went in a different direction when they arrived, so they never encountered.
But I think they call the thing is like Presarian, which is
the Praetorian Guard. They ran into some.
No. The material. I think it was,
okay. That I did not write down.
Neosorium,
Neosorium, which is purely Federation technology.
Yes.
So, but Seska goes to look into it, and then she gets injured. When the Kazon, who they found out who was alive but in bad shape, and they had to completely replace the guy's blood, as Seska is there in the sickbay and she's leaving, and the doctor, remember the doctor's stuck in sickbay now because we're so early in the series, says, hey, I never got a chance to examine you, and she's like, oh, that's cool, I'll come back later or whatever. So it's like, here's the person who won't go to the doctor, and she's finding ways to avoid it. Well, in trying to recover this council, she gets injured. I love her injury effects. Like, she gets like a sunburn. He's like, I got to treat her and we'll do a scan or whatever. Well, now she can't get away from getting a scan. So whatever it is that it
good old radiation.
We're going to find out, kind of what's going on here. So at this point, suspicions start to fly around. Who gave him the tech? Joe Carey gets suspected, which seems very red herring-ish. Like I really didn't believe it because it's pretty obvious somebody gave it to it, but who's acting fishy? Seska's acting, fishy.
Yeah.
So it kind of tilts you in that direction. But anyway, another Kazon ship comes along. It's the same size and disposition as the first ship. So they look like little stupid shuttlecraft. It's like, it's really threatening a little. It looks like it's somewhere between the Defiant and a Runabout size. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think at one point they do put them next to it, and it is like twice the size of Voyager, but you don't see them next to each other very often. So the threat doesn't feel very
right. Well, they have that one huge ship.
Well, they have the big one, but I'm saying like generally speaking, the Kazon ships are like 1.5 to 2 times the size of Voyager. Like they are bigger. They're just not like that much bigger.
So we meet our first recurring villain in the series, and it'd be Maj Cullen, and played by Anthony DeLongis, who's a character actor of that ilk, who's been in a ton of stuff. But he's lame as shit, because they all are, And this is the first time since the premiere that we see them, kind of fully functional, whatever it is. And I remember now that the Kazon, it took me years to figure this out. The first Kazon that we meet, Jabin, in the series premiere was brother Chuck from the first episode of Happy Days, who walked up those stairs and never came back. The character was thrown out after the first episode of Happy Days. But we're seeing for the first time these big headdresses that they wear, and I'm like, is this some kind of really screwed up component of like those are like mashed up dreadlocks? Is it a helmet of some kind? I never really got to the bottom of what they were or what they were supposed to mean.
I don't.
Were they supposed to make them look like badasses? I mean, I just
don't really know what they were supposed to be either. I mean, I know that in my house we sometimes called them coral heads,
right.
Because
I stubbed my head on a Kazon.
Well, because of the weird like stuff that's in their hair, it kind of looks like someone ripped a piece off of a coral reef.
Right, exactly.
So like. Outside of that, I don't really know what the thought process was, other than like we need to make them look different,
right?
And we haven't done weird things with hair before, so let's do something weird.
We've called them Timu Klingons in the past. I know I danced around naming the episode that, but I think I settled on something else, which we'll get. What did I? Hold on, let me scroll back to my notes. I ended up deciding. Let me see if it's appropriate to reveal it at this time. Oh, I did, and it's part of my next note. So the doctor did, in fact, get a chance to obviously do a full physical on Seska while he was treating her, and it turns out that, and Seska is still unconscious. It turns out she is actually a Cardassian. And I wrote, "You never go Full-Cardie," which is a reference to a line I won't repeat from a movie called Tropic Thunder. If you know, you know. But it's not something I can repeat because it's got a swear in it. But
at least not in public.
Yeah, at least not in public. But we get so she's yet to be she's yet to be questioned about it. They're getting ready. B'Elanna's got her solution ready. She's going to beam over, grab the thing back. Kulla's chest thumping. If you beam over the ship, it's an act of war. And then Janeway has this great line. I don't like bullies. I don't like threats. And I don't like you, Kulla. And I'm like, wow, that's great on two sides of a screen. But when they're finally face to face and at the end of next season, he actually backhands her, which is quite crappy. Yeah. When they recovered the piece of tech, the console is a Timu food replicator.
Yeah.
They're trying to build a food replicator with the bootleg tech, and
they forgot to put neodymium shield around it or whatever it was,
because they probably didn't. Yeah, they didn't do some kind of rad shielding that made it explode.
Yeah.
We now finally get Chakotay questioning the now awake Seska. Hey, why does it appear you're Cardassian? Oh, I had a flu and blah, blah, blah. And this is when it settled on me.
Replaced.
Yeah, bone marrow replaced by an old woman named blah, blah, blah. Like she's got a story that could sound credulous if you trusted her, which at this point it's getting less and less. But it was at this point I picked out, I've noted this before, but I can't really wrap my head around Beltran's season 1 hair. It looks like a buzz cut that somebody did with garden shears, because there's like a little bit of hit here and a little bit over there. And I'm like, Beltran's got great hair, like in the later seasons of the show. Wow, to rival Riker's hair or beard. Boom, solid. They put a lot of effort into it. Great product in it.
But also, he has a lot more gray in it right now, too, which he doesn't have as much later.
Totally disappears, which means he started doing Just for Men's or Dying or whatever it is. But you can't trust me for having short hair and for having a short beard, which I do. You really can't. It's really a huge pain in the ass to try to put color in it, because you got to do it every week. Like I trim my beard every week. I'd have to do Just for Men every week. And I'm just, I'm all done between now and the time, whatever. I'm all done doing any kind of hair coloring because I tried it during COVID for cosplay purposes, and I had to shave my head to get rid of it. So yeah, I'm not all about that. So, so now they're planning they're setting a trap within the computer to get whoever is guilty to reveal themselves. And I love it while they're sitting there waiting. So you see in engineering, and it's in the office portion, which again, that set is a redress of the TNG set. So it's the little console that's just to the left of the warp core, which of course was Geordi's office on TNG. But Tuvok and Chakotay are sitting there playing Gin, the card game, which I found it hilarious because and they get a great scene at the end of the episode too, the little button on the end of the episode, which I totally dug. But yeah, Chakotay says, "You're so good at it, I'll sponsor you in a tournament someday." So I'm like, I like seeing that because those are, two characters we definitely saw were at loggerheads from the get-go because of course Tuvok was the spy on Chakotay's crew, and that's not cool. So there's a little bit of classic misdirect, and they finally track it down. Yes, Seska is the spy. The alibi falls apart because the doctor, they turn him on and says, "Oh, I guess I'm here to reveal that Seska's totally full of shit." And then you see her just turn on a dime and she says, if this Cardassian ship, we'd be home by now. You suck, Janeway. We got to start making friends with powerful allies. Starfleet is bullshit. And I'm out, and she beams out.
Yep. It's a very, very quick, screw you, I'm gone.
Janeway does, screw you guys, I'm going home. Janeway does give a prime directive speech and leading Seska to going full-Cardie, which I say you never go full-Cardie. Because she does go full, like, evil Gul Dukat, like, okay, she's definitely part of the Obsidian Order. She's got that Cardassian.
Well, I mean, she was an embedded agent. She's got to be part of the Obsidian Order.
Yeah, exactly correct. So, this was a note I had at the end. Maybe this comes up in the fun facts too, but Janeway says, set a course at warp 4 to escape this. There's other Kazon ships coming into range. Set a course at warp 4. So I said, does that mean that Kazon ships can only go warp 3 or less? So could they simply escape the Kazon permanently by going warp 5 wherever they go? So I thought that was weird. It would have made sense for her to say, well, set a course to get out of here. We're in deep shit. Let's go warp 7. You know what I mean? Which they can only do for a set period of time. Cruising speed of average Federation ship is around 6 or 6.5 that they can maintain. And anything above that is emergency. So I don't know, little nit to pick. My final note that I loved was, again, our kind of final scene is Tuvok sitting in the mess hall having his cup of tea and looking at his pad. And Chakotay sits down and, hey, let me ask you a question. You fooled me. She fooled me. Am I just a giant dumbass? And he says, well, I was during the time I was with you, I was honest to myself within the parameters of my mission, but it was not easy for me. Don't escape. Don't confuse composure for ease, he said. And then he says, how may I be honest with you today, Commander? I love those two lines. That's why Tim Russ, who has been a guest on our show, I think is one of the best actors on Voyager. I absolutely love the character. So they have a little back-to-back, and Chakotay has the kind of last line that says, misery loves company, Tuvok. And that wraps things up. So
because Tuvok says, like, I didn't pick up on Seska either. So don't feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she fooled us all. She pulled the wool over our collective eyes. So this episode was an 8 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed it. I thought certainly within and we're now at the end of season 1, because again, this is episode 11 of 15 that they aired, with the last 4 being pushed into season 2. There were definitely some duffers before this. Because again, I wrote as the case with all of the Berman era shows, the TNG, DS9, Voyager, and then Enterprise, your first seasons were a rough ride. You got a peak here and there. I all thought they had great first episodes, without a doubt. But things that followed, I thought DS9 was particularly rough. There were parts of the first season of Enterprise I thought were definitely a miss. But you got some bright spots.
And this one had notoriously so.
Yeah. This one had some nice twists and turns. I won't say the conclusion was a big surprise, because they teed it up in some ways. I'm like, yeah, I think the bitch is evil. She just seems, because you already know she was shifty. She's looting chip stores and whatever, and being manipulative with Chakotay. That was pretty obvious.
Yeah. It probably would have worked better had they had a little bit more going with Kelly. With Joe Kelly, because he shows up for a couple scenes and it's not enough to be like, oh, he's an important character that could be doing funny. Something.
You called him Kelly instead of Carrie, but both are super Irish names. So it's easy to mix up. I know.
Wrong consonant.
Right. But, this, so we're setting up Seska on her kind of character journey. We don't see her again until, I think, Maneuvers, which is early season 2. And then we get the Kazon are set up as our first recurring villain, but they're kind of the equivalent of the season 1 Next Generation Ferengi. But they figured it out pretty quickly that it's like, Denise Crosby told it greatly in the TNG panel on the cruise this year. He says, when I walked around a corner and I saw Armin Shimmerman dressed up for the episode where the last outpost, which was first appearance occurring, I burst into laughter looking at him. And I think we all knew from that point, it just was never going to work, which is why you then saw the Ferengi very sparingly throughout the rest of TNG. And by the time we got to DS9 with Armin Shimmerman again, they finally kind of figured out the race and how they can kind of best be used. But how about you? Where do you land this one on the number scale?
I would probably put this one around a 7.5, 8.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty good. I just thought that some of the, which pains me to say, because like Michael Piller liked it so much, and I really like his writing, but it was like the Seska reveal was just a little too obvious.
Yeah, long nose.
And so that's kind of where I have to bump it down a little bit. Is just there was the attempt at mystery, it just didn't quite work for me in terms of like making me question my initial hunch. Because there are shows where I have an initial hunch and then they bring in new facts and it's like, maybe not. Oftentimes my initial hunch is correct, but sometimes you make me doubt it throughout the episode, and that's good writing. This one just doesn't do a good job with that. And that's just, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. It's not like saying, ooh, this is bad. It's just, I have to bump it down a couple notches just for that. So
right. All right. Couple of fun facts. This episode was the first installment that Robert Scheer directed, and because he was used to directing Star Trek: Next Generation, he found while filming the episode that the atmosphere between Voyager's cast was a very different environment. This being my first episode, the cast was friendly, had not really come together the way they had on TNG, which how could they have? And the show had been in production for 9 months, so that totally makes sense. That cast was really a family, and I felt part of the family were Voyager. They were all nice, but it wasn't the same. Well, I mean, I totally get it. Mm-hmm. Color actor Anthony DeLongis, who I mentioned earlier, had a mistaken impression about the episode and the role he'd been cast. I read only a few of the pages that my character had on them for the audition, so at one point I actually thought I might somehow be romancing the captain. What pages did he read? Probably when he was being all schmarmy when they were first in the sickbay. I guess I get that because he wasn't really being very threatening and stuff. According to Scheer, actress Kate Mulgrew was ill during production and on this episode, and only came in for the last day of filming on the bridge, so her dialogue was given out to fellow cast members. So I guess that would kind of squirrel things along. So exterior of the teaser were filmed at Bronson Canyon. I've been there. I could pick it out. Wasn't hard. Mm-hmm. Robert Beltran suffered an embarrassing wardrobe malfunction during the location filming. Martha Hackett recalled, "This is more about Robert than it is about me, but when we were shooting one of my first episodes when I was a Maquis, we were shooting in the cave in the Hollywood Hills. We had this new costume, and I think it was their second or third episode. Roberts kept splitting just the whole thing, stern to stern, every time we would run into this little cave. So everyone got to know each other real quickly after that." With his nuts hanging out. Nice. And my note about Tuvok said, despite this being the first appearance of the Kazon Nistrum, which they describe as a sect, being more than one sect, Tuvok recognizes the sect to which the ship belongs, which can only explain if the crew had an off-screen encounter with them by this point or otherwise learn the configuration of the sect ships. My guess is they got that information from Neelix. Last bit, and again, two more things. Tora's line claiming she doesn't exaggerate is an allusion to Montgomery Scott's habit of examination, which led to him becoming a miracle worker, which he talks about.
How long will it take? 4 hours. No, you got to multiply it by 4.
Yeah. Exactly. Although Michael Piller and executive producer Rick Berman liked this episode, Jerry Taylor, also the co-creator of the series, was less enthusiastic. Piller said of the episode, it had a good payoff. It's very tricky, complex story, which is intricately woven that the audience might believe she's into the crime until the last moment, where, of course, the revelation comes. I found it a very rewarding story where Jared Taylor noted the show was okay. All right. One facet of the installment that Taylor approved of was Michael Piller's introduction of a romantic backstory for Chakotay and Sisko. Well, that becomes pretty critical. A character development that Taylor described as interesting. She elaborated, I think, Chakotay's struggle made it all the more poignant. You really saw the stakes were for him because that, and ultimately he did the right thing in what his duty was compels him to do. And those always make for good stories. I agree. R.I.P. Jerry Taylor. Yeah. Visited just last fall. I visited for the second time the wonderful Janeway bust statue in Jerry Taylor and Catherine Janeway's fictional shared hometown of Bloomington, Indiana, because it was on the way to a trade show that I was going to.
Nice.
All right. Let's keep it rolling with our latest installment of Top 5 and Bottom 5. This time taking on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which, as you know, if you're a regular listener of this show, Peter and I, hopefully, I hate to speak for both of us, but I will say we probably strongly considered to be the best, at least for myself, the best that Star Trek will ever be is Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
It's really good.
And so, but every show has its highs and lows. So that is what we're going to get into talking about now. As we have in past segments, we will do a round robin format. We'll do a good. Peter will do a good. Then we'll circle back to a bad and a bad. So on and so forth. I will admit I did a little bit of cheating. I did a lot of bit of cheating like I did last week, kind of lumping some things together, but I do have some standout solos and some standout good and bad. So anyway, Peter, I gave you the flip of the coin. You want to go first or second?
Doesn't matter to me.
Virtual flip.
Tails.
Then you're going first.
All right, cool. So I'll pick a top one. This one should be no surprise to anyone. Trials and Tribulations.
Oh, but of course, I'm glad we picked favorites that we can agree on, but we didn't both have the same one because that just
I'm sure a couple of them we're going to have crossover.
Probably so. But
Trials and Tribulations, it was for the 25th anniversary, 30th anniversary, and I was barely conscious at the time, so I don't
exactly. Well, you were less conscious for the 25th, which is 1991.
I wasn't even. Yeah. I was alive. That was it.
Congratulations on being alive.
Yeah. So Trials and Tribulations is a classic story of going back in time to the classic TOS episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, one of the top episodes of that series. And so we get wonderful use of technology at the time to insert our Deep Space Nine characters into shots with
Forrest Gump
series characters.
Very Forrest Gump.
And it was really, really well done. Seamless, I might say. They did borrow a shot from Mirror Mirror to get a final scene with Sisko and Kirk, but it did work really well. We had a lot of jokes about different continuity things, like changing the colors from red and like swapping departments for red and gold.
Right. And the Klingons. And we got comments about the different kinds of sensors. And like there was a lot of just really fun stuff in this episode. And even like if you watch the behind the scenes, how they choreographed the bar fight. So it's like, yes, we fight a certain way in 90s television, but we had to go back and retrain everybody how to do these like Western style brawl saloon fights for this punch and throw and guy sliding across a table.
And like they just did a really good job of seamlessly putting together all of this stuff so that it actually worked. And the story works pretty well too, where you have Arm Darvin, who they brought back the original actor from the episode.
Charlie Brill.
Yep. They brought him back, and it's like he's going to go back in time and kill Kirk because he's upset that he got caught and he brought dishonor on his whole house, and then he was basically exiled and had to live selling garbage to Cardassians.
Hot fish juice.
Well, that's what he had to drink. I don't remember exactly what else, but
he sold minerals and such.
Yeah, he sold just stuff to Cardassians and got stuck when the war started.
Yeah, right.
So there's just a lot of fun stuff, lots of goofy lines, and then it's an orb of the prophets that gets them there. And then we also get the introduction of the Department of Temporal Investigations and just the hilarious bookending of the episode with those two guys is just great. So it's just it's a very well written episode, a great homage.
Domer and Luxley.
Yeah, it's
an anagram for Mulder and Scully, which is what it says in the
X-Files.
book.
Yeah, so it's like it's a great homage to the original series, a love letter to Star Trek in general, but also just a hilariously written episode that has a lot of quotable lines, like Bashir and O'Brien being dumb about the grandfather paradox, and
Yeah.
And the line, of course, about the Klingons that until Enterprise just stuck around, which was, we do not talk about it with outsiders, which was just hilarious. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And because, and watch that episode. That's a great arc from the fourth season of Enterprise, which, again, when we get to talking about the multi-parter and the series premiere episodes, which we'll do later this year, we'll talk about that series in depth. So, all right. Well, my first top 5 is a really random one. And it's funny because I have one of my bottom 5 is kind of same concept. But it's season 5's Children of Time.
Oh yeah, I can.
Really weird out there. I'm pretty sure it came from the slush pile because it takes place in the I was going to say the Delta Quadrant because we were just talking about Voyager, but in the Gamma Quadrant, they find a planet kind of surrounded by this chronoton, whatever it is, shield, and they accidentally dip. They're going to investigate it because Dax wants to check it out, but they get trapped there, and in doing so, they create a paradox where the ship, being thrown backwards in time 200 years, crashes, and the survivors of that crash have to start a new society. And so now I think it's maybe it's 100 or 200 years. Now I can't remember. It's more than 100 years.
I think it's 200 years because everyone's been dead for a while.
Yeah. So the only ones who are still around is Odo because he's ageless, and then the Dax symbiont moves on to, and they're descendants of Worf as well. So there's some Klingon and Proto Klingon characters in that, and our people have to have a kind of a impossible choice moment where if they can either escape creating the accident or they can go back and cause the accident, so that the several thousand colonists that live on this planet will survive or not survive. And I won't reveal the conclusion because I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And, but it's also not really that hard to figure out, but it's worth watching. But I thought the episode had a lot of heart, introduced kind of a lot of cool characters that were one-offs, ultimately.
Its take on Odo is really good, too.
And it gave the Kira-Odo relationship, the will they, won't they, a solid kick in the ass, although it still takes some time to resolve. So it continues to be interesting after this episode. And that's why I liked it so much. And again, it was a one-off. It was before the Dominion War started, so it was before so many of the stories obviously had to focus on that 2-season arc that took us from season 6 and 7 to end the series. But I was still genuinely impressed by this little, like I said, kind of one-off episode. So
it's a good one.
So all right, talk to me about a terrible one, something you hate.
All right, so I believe this is season 5, Resurrection.
Oh, really? Season 6.
Season 6. It's
with Bareil.
It's Mirror Universe Bareil. And I think one of the main reasons that this one just kind of rankles me a bit is like Bareil's been dead, and I'm not the biggest fan of like how we just kind of make Mirror Kira just like all over the place more and more as we go on. Like she's ridiculous the first time we see her, and that's fine because that's Mirror Universe. But then we seem to like she's already at 11, and now now we're at like 18, and so it's a little too much. Yeah. And so and also just like now we're gonna torture normal Kira with like, oh, it's Bareil, maybe I could have this relationship again. She's already starting to like do some stuff with Odo, and it's it's kind of icky for me.
And it was one of the first episodes after the return arc, the leaving and the returning arc of our heroes from the station at the beginning of season 6 when the war breaks out. So it's like, and it was also, I think, immediately following the wedding episode, which was the next episode. So it's like God, we're on this high and things are great. And we had the super intense arc with the war. And now we had the very fun wedding episode that everybody loved. And now we have this.
Yeah. So
it was like, it was the gas, the air went out of the tires.
Yeah. It might just be because of its relation to everything else around it. But I just remember this episode. I just don't like this one. Every time it comes up, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not a ton of the core episodes of DS9 that are super skippable.
Fine. Like, it's not like it's poorly directed or badly acted. It's just,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. All right. Back to a goodie.
You got to give us
what's that?
You got to.
I got to give you a bad. I thought I just did one. Okay, you're right. I don't know why I scrolled back up again. Mine's pretty obvious, and I picked the fruit that is not only low hanging, but it's on the ground and maybe starting to rot. Move Along Home from season 1.
Yeah.
This was the one, and again, I clearly this is part of the season 1 curse that I just talked about when we were talking about Voyager. That they're struggling to find things to write about to make this new setting interesting.
Yeah.
And this had to do with a race that came from the Gamma Quadrant, and our people want to have diplomatic relations with them, but they're kind of like, we just want to go to Quark's and have a good time and play games.
Yeah.
We just want to play games. And we don't really figure out why until our people then get trapped in their virtual construct of whatever it is. And they have to play this game where it's like hopscotch plus I didn't even know he's like you jump here, but if you jump here, you get zapped or something.
But there's also like so many other things where it's like you have to drink the champagne to not choke to death, and
right, exactly.
There's lots of just weird stuff, and it's not clear like how the dice or whatever they're rolling affects the shafts.
Right,
like what's going on.
And at the end of it, the race just they're like, oh, okay, cool, and then they leave. So it's like the only real good takeaway.
Clark, but nice game. Okay.
But at the end of it, what we really get out of it is a fun visual gag that shows up on Lower Decks. So much of the really questionable, dumb material of all of the series shows up on Lower Decks as a gag. So
and
this gave us
part
that.
Of why I didn't put it down my list was I enjoy the memes that it spawned.
So this race, the Wadi, much like with Tosk, who we see in a subsequent episode, we never hear from again.
No.
So much of what came through the wormhole. Before the Dominion even gets mentioned, which is at the early part of season 2, and then it kind of gestates, and then we get the Jem'Hadar at the end of season 2, and at which point we don't get any new or interesting whatever or stupid things out of the falling through the wormhole, which is totally fine because this obviously really did not work out. So all right, well, let's get back on the good side then.
All right, okay. Let's see, which one do I want to mention next? Okay, I will mention The Magnificent Ferengi.
Oh, man, yes, season 6, not long after the arc we were just talking about.
So this one it's kind of a standalone episode. And I know some people are like, oh gosh, why the Ferengi? Let me tell you, I love the Ferengi episodes in Deep Space Nine because they are hysterical generally. There's a couple that are kind of stinkers, but
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
I guarantee it.
This one is hilarious. Obviously, it's a play on the Magnificent Seven. It's Quark, Rom, Brunt, Cousin Gala, and some other Ferengi whose names are escaping me.
He's like Lunk or Lonar, something with
but
an
it's
L.
like weapons dealers and all. They get all together and they're going to go rescue Moogie from the Dominion. And it is
from and your main Vorta is Michigan native and punk rock superstar Iggy Pop, which is fabulous.
It's just this whole extra thing, and they bring in a Vorta that we captured last season, and then he gets shot, and they have to puppeteer his corpse. Like,
Weekend at Bernie's him through the end of it. Oh my god!
And so, like at the final thing, he's like bumping up against the wall. It's so stupid, but it's got so many just great moments. Like Nog is there, like the one line of sanity, and the rest of this just absolutely insane clown posse.
A bunch of fucking idiots.
And
it's like mob guys that couldn't find their hands with their asses with 2 hands in a road map.
It's like they're all conniving businessmen and weapons dealers, and they do all this stuff, and they're just like dumbasses. And it's such a fun episode. It is so dumb, but if ever it comes on, like if I'm at a hotel and I turn it on, it's Magnificent Free, I'm watching the whole episode. It is enjoyably dumb.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And like you said, most of the Ferengi episodes, fun. Early ones, there's a few that stand out, not as much. But anyway, I went with another low-hanging fruit for a good one, which may be on your list as well. And it would be one of 2 bright spots in season 1, which is Duet.
I don't have that on there, no.
Oh, good. Okay, this is one that actually was a favorite of Nana Visitor, who was a guest on our show last year. Mm-hmm. This one came up, and it was right after the passing of Harris Yulin, who's the actor who plays a Cardassian, apparently civilian, who falls into Bajoran custody. Records reveal him to be a Cardassian war criminal. He denies his existence up until this is revealed, and then he starts behaving terribly, and Kara is interrogating him, and we have a lot of really great character development about her, and start to reveal a lot of the real atrocities that exist in her past, and really a lot of things happen during the occupation. And in the end of it, there's a turnaround when it's revealed that he is lying about his identity because he wants to become a martyr and use his deception to expose, the horrors of the Cardassian government and things that they did. And ultimately there's a conclusion to that, which I will not give away. Because if you haven't seen it, you absolutely need to. So magnificent performances by magnificent actors. And like I said, the brightest of bright spots from that first season, the first of which I would consider to be obviously the series premiere, which gave us great performances, particularly from Avery Brooks, I thought. But like I said, Nana Visitor came right out and said that she loved this episode.
Is a great episode.
Yeah,
it really is.
I am with her on that. So, all right, back to you, Tom.
Back to the bad ones. Okay, I think this one is late season 1. I didn't write down seasons.
I went back and added them, but I bet I can pluck it out of my mind.
Babel.
Yeah, early season 1. Yeah. This was like episode 5 or 6. Yep.
So this is, for those who don't know, this is what I call the aphasia episode.
Because that's what
it is. So it's reverse Babel of the biblical reference. Well, actually, no, not reverse. It is Babel. So basically everyone just starts speaking stupidly.
In tongues. Yeah.
They start having aphasia, basically. You're able to think, but you can't speak normal words.
So you say a bunch of wacky words.
Instead of having them have like a different language, they were just like putting their words out of order and all of that. And so just
blurg, talk, flurgen,
that's a
window,
so
lights.
It's one of those things where it's like kind of this whole thing where it's like it's this medical episode where we're trying to figure it out, but it's also caused by something else. I don't exactly.
It's a MacGuffin that puts a toxin in the replicator, and it's just when you drink your coffee, it makes you talk aphasia.
Yeah, because O'Brien gets it first because he drank his coffee first in the episode. So it's it's kind of just a weird episode, and I don't know. It
was very in depth, and again, it was like first 10 episodes, right? So they're trying to really root you on the setting. So everything's got to happen on the station.
Yeah, and this is kind of a bottle show where it's like we're trying to like this is something that is on the station. It isolates the station, and because now you're under medical quarantine and all of that. So like I get what you're trying to do, but I just this one doesn't grab me, and I tend to get fairly bored with it fairly quickly. I even remember when I saw this the first time, like I was a captive audience, and like I was the only one watching it. I was by myself. I was like, I want to watch Deep Space Nine because it's going to be fun. And I watched this and I was like, I don't really like this episode. Then every other time I've seen it past that, it's like, I can see the good in it. I can see the attempts, but I don't find it very enjoyable to watch.
Right.
Because there's just so many scenes sitting there with people getting frustrated of being unable to communicate. It's like, I get it. We've seen this. All right. So
44 minutes. Let's go.
The drum over and over. It's like, I got it. They can't
move along home.
Yeah.
Move along home.
Alamarraine.
Alamarraine. Gotcha. All right. Low-hanging fruit again. Sorry. I guess my choice after this one is a little bit less so. But season 5's Let He Who Is Without Sin. That's is the
on
Rise
my list
episode.
Too.
Oh, let's talk about it together.
Yeah.
I wrote Treading Water Before Things Get Intense as the series launches in the Dominion War, because this is early season 5. And we get the real taste of just a few episodes after this. We get the real because the uniforms change a few episodes after this. Mm-hmm. And that's when things really kick into high gear, because we have Rapture, and then we have the two-parter where the Cardassians join the Dominion are just episodes after this one.
Yeah.
But we get this supposed to be a light and fun episode, but they all go to Rise on vacation, and Dax and Worf are struggling with finding the balance in their relationship, because he's all grumpy and he's telling her what to do and she doesn't like it. But I'm like, well, just break up. You've been dating for like 3 weeks. Like, if there's this many red flags, maybe you shouldn't be together. I wrote the only redeemable contribution to the series overall is that we learn a little bit about what makes Worf such a stiff, because he talks about a childhood accident where he was playing soccer with another kid and they leapt at each other and Worf headbutted him and he broke this kid's neck, and the kid died. So Worf said, well, I learned after this I always have to
have
restrain myself around other non-Klingons. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Watching this episode for the first time in the fall of 95 when it was on, that's what I take away from it as being, all right, this is something I learned about Worf as a character that was useful. Mm-hmm. Everything else is complete crap.
Yeah, it's not great. Like some of the Quark side stuff is kind of funny.
Yeah, but there's not much of it. It's
not
very
a lot of it. And then the Ryzen eco-terrorists who are mad at the Federation is just stupid.
Yeah, it's very dumb. Whoa, we're not militant enough. Yeah, it's very Michigan militia.
It's just like the Federation is soft, and so we're gonna wonk the weather on Ryza to make people aware.
That'll show them. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then Worf's like, I kind of like what they're doing, so I think I'll get on board. But then I changed my mind because they went too far. And then a guy tried to get handsy with me, so I kicked his ass. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's just like there's parts of it where like, yeah, I could see people in the Federation being a little concerned that they're being like, especially if like there's rumbles of the Dominion already.
Right.
Like being concerned that the Federation is being a little bit too like, it'll be fine. And it's like, no, we probably need to have some sovereign class ships ready to go beat people's asses. And so like I get that, but the way that we went about it in this episode is just like there's probably a better way to do it, both in like the episode itself and also just if you're trying to reflect real life, there's other ways that it's been done and been done better.
Yeah.
So,
true. Truth.
Yeah. So it's just like
precisely. All right, back to the good stuff.
Okay.
You're going first. Yeah. Go ahead. Good.
So I don't want to bring. I guess I'll just go for the really obvious one now. Just
a great one.
Because,
okay.
So to the surprise of no one, In the Pale Moonlight.
Oh, but of course, yes, the low-hanging fruit, the high-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's
on an upside-down tree.
The most obvious, shining on a pillar with spotlights.
Right. The one that anybody who is a serious Star Trek fan or someone who is, I don't want to use the word educated, but someone who has seen much, if not all of Star Trek will point to this as top 10 of the franchise. Yeah. Top 10 of the franchise. Yeah.
It's a really, really good episode. Like it has a great moral question. Because it starts and you're like, what is Sisko struggling with? Like, what's going on? And then you get this you got a framing thing where Sisko's telling a log, which is, I don't think we really get this very much.
I can't recall.
We occasionally get like log narration with things in different episodes, but we don't get like bookended like that, where it's like opening log, I'm struggling with something, and then we get narration, and then at the end it's like, and here's how it ends.
The entire story is told in flashback, and then he essentially erases it. So his log never happened. So we now know a story that no one else really knows.
And it's just really
or is documented.
And it's really well done, because you see like you see what Sisko wants to do. You can see that like he doesn't want to do it that way, but doesn't have a better way. So he's skirting around it, and of course he asks Garrick, which Garrick has a great line about that later, which is like, you asked me for my help. You knew exactly what that entailed.
I gave you what you asked for, and it's pretty significant because the Romulans will come into the war, which we all needed, and all that it really cost was your dignity.
Yeah, all it cost was the self-respect of one Starfleet officer. There's some really, really good lines. So this is one of those episodes that Deep Space Nine does really well on reflecting on the nature of war and the types of decisions that have to be made in it, most of which are uncomfortable and we don't want to have to make. And obviously they're thinking about big, like, and I think even if you read the behind the scenes stuff, like the big decisions that are being thrown in the background of when this thing is being written is like, the atomic bomb and those sorts of things where it's like, these are tough decisions. Why did they have to be made? They were so horrible. And you have the same thing with Sisko, our captain, who is a good man. We know him to be a good man. We've seen him for 6 seasons doing this. And then he makes this just morally rancorous decision. And we're just like, I guess he's justified, but holy crap!
What else is he going to do?
Like, what can you
what
do?
else is there to be done?
And I'm not saying like it's a morally right decision per se, but but stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's kind of the only thing he could do.
Yeah. That's what really, as we all know, makes Star Trek so endearing as it is grappling with things that are so uniquely human against a backdrop that is not.
Yep. Dealing specifically with the human condition is when Star Trek shines the best. When it's the human condition and things that like we may not struggle with exactly individually, though those are sometimes the better episodes. But like this one, it's not a decision that like I have to do. I'm not a general in the Army, but I know of people. I've read history. How does this decision happen? We're all familiar with it. And so bringing that in and reflecting on it and looking at it from different angles is something that Star Trek does really, really well. And I think this episode does it masterfully.
Absolutely correct. Well, I looped this one in with another Simpsons reference, but this is a two-parter. So this is the beginning of my cheating.
Yeah.
It's not. I take it back. It's only a two-parter for syndication. It was a one-parter when it aired because I remember when it aired. Fall of 1995 is the season 4 premiere, The Way of the Warrior.
Yep. Not on my list. Almost was. But
almost was. I wrote a cheap stunt to bolster ratings, bringing in a familiar character into a new setting. And I just saw this episode a couple of days ago. It reminds me of the Simpsons episode, the Simpsons spin-off showcase, where they joke that the Fox approached the producers of the Simpsons to fill some blocks in their programming, and it's being narrated by the late Phil Hartman as Troy McClure. And he points to a screen where they have 3 shows and 35 gaps, and so they introduce 3 like crap spin-offs, like Chief Wiggum becomes a PI in New Orleans, and Grandpa Simpson becomes a ghost, and he inhabits the love tester at Moe's Bar. Like, so was this a way to bolster ratings on DS9 by putting in a familiar character?
Absolutely.
Which is, of course, Worf. Absolutely. But Worf is I hate to use the word Worf as a great fit because it sounds so corpo, but he's a great fit for the vibe of Deep Space Nine.
Oh yeah.
He's an outsider. He's gruff. He's Starfleet, but he's also a Klingon. And then besides the fact that we get some kick-ass space battles, all done with practical visual effects, that still look a little bit, you can tell they're practical because they're not really of the CGI quality. And even the physical effects get better during season 6 when we have the big space battles with the Dominion. And we get a lot of great, kind of Klingon-isms, Klingon punch-ups, the great kind of the third act aboard the station with all the Klingon battles and the firefights, and the great scene with Garrick and Dukat fighting off Klingons who are trying to get to the civilian Cardassian government officials behind this door. And Garrick is shooting people as they walk up, where Dukat they're both covered in blood, but he's killing people with the batleth, and it's like, oh, they're friends. That'll last for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But
friends.
It was, and at the end, Worf comes to stay, and you get a great, that last sequence before the big reveal. Here's Worf, and he's now in red uniform, and he's joining the crew because he's in the DS9 uniform, because he wears his TNG gold the entire time, his classic uniform.
Yep.
But that great sequence that they have where Worf's going to quit and he's going to go join the French Foreign Legion, which is the Nybride Alliance, which actually planning to work into this original story that I need to sit down with you and break at some point. I want to sit down and break the Starbase 50 story. We should just go to Brewery Vivant, have some beers, and break the story.
Have some notepads and beers and just
I do, because I want to put the Nybride Alliance into my story because I have a vision for it.
Nice.
But yeah, Worf is a great fit for that, and it definitely changed the direction of the series in a way that I think really, there were bright spots in season 3. They were less so in season 2, much less so in season 1. But season 4 on, not that they didn't still have shitty episodes, but everything changed in a great direction where we embraced the most, the character who has clocked the most appearances in all of Star Trek, which is Michael Dorn as Worf.
Yep.
This was the beginning of his dominion of that title. So, ha 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 ha! All right, give me a bad one.
All right, a bad one. Time's Orphan.
Oh, that's on my list too.
Yeah, my brief description of this one is feral Molly.
Oh my God. I wrote, it doesn't work in TNG and also doesn't work here. Show centering around the kid actors. And yeah, the feral Molly, who is, basically what happens is, and this is also plucked right in the middle of season 6. So in the Dominion
it's like
War
we've got
arc,
way more interesting things going on.
But the O'Briens go for a picnic on Bajor, and Molly falls down a time hole.
She falls through a Stargate. She literally falls through a Stargate.
Yeah. She pops out like having aged 10 years, and she's feral and can't speak and all this different shit, and causes a bunch of aging up Molly into a Lord of the Flies child it's a big flop. And there's no stakes because again, it'll get turned around at the end, which of course it does.
Yeah, they send her back, and then she sends her child self back through the Stargate, and then
with the teddy bear or whatever
that she's fine, and obviously that future version of her has been erased from existence.
Right.
But it's just
total no stakes and a poor concept.
Yeah, but it's just like, I get that it's like, it's kind of this weird exploration of nature and nurture.
Yeah.
But it's just, it doesn't land well. I don't think, particularly because like Molly has had a lot of like interaction with her parents, and a lot of her mother's a teacher. Like there's a lot of stuff that's going to be ingrained in her, and she's like, what, 5, 6?
Yeah.
So
yeah, by the time slide she is, though, she'd be 5 because the character was born in season 5 of TNG, which was 1992 by our calendar, and this came out in 97, so she should be 5.
Yeah.
But I feel like she's 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But whatever.
It's just, it's very, like, I get what they're trying to do, and it can be interesting, but I just don't think it works terribly well, especially.
It can't be interesting, but it ain't.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the problem is like, they're trying to like, re-socialize feral Molly and like, oh, we're your parents and we love you and all of this stuff, all the while trying to figure out a way to undo it, which, makes sense. That's what you do. You're in Starfleet. You try to undo problems, especially of the temporal nature. But it's this very weird thing where they're trying to undo it, and then they figure out how, and they're like, oh, well, should we really do that? And it's like, do you really want child Molly to live through all of that? Being isolated from every single person. And so like, I get it. It's nature versus nurture, but I just, it's not as interesting as it could be, or maybe it could be more interesting if it had a better B plot, but it just doesn't have a good B plot either.
I don't even remember what the B plot was.
Neither do I. That's how memorable it is. So that's why it's not a great episode.
We're talking about all of these from memory. I didn't sit down and watch any of these because I made this list up yesterday.
Yeah, I went back and looked at some stuff, but I didn't like rewatch all of these.
I looked at what I've done with all of these, and obviously this is the third one we've done, is that I look at a list of all of the episodes I write Star Trek Deep Space Nine episodes ranked, and I get a list. I look it over, and then I pick the ones that resonate with me on one side or the other, just because of my overwhelming familiarity with these. Having watched
it's like I know these episodes fairly well. I just don't remember every single detail. But like, I haven't watched Time's Orphan in a hot minute, and I'm able to tell you a bunch of stuff about it, and like that freaking ball that comes up all the time. So it's like, It's not like I'm coming out of nowhere. It's not an enjoyable episode.
Right. All right, give me a good one. We're getting down to the. I have two more, but they're my.
I have
cheats.
2 more, and I have 1 more bottom because we've crossed.
Right. All right. So we'll do. Yeah. You do a good. I'll do a good. We'll do the bad, and then the last 2 goods.
All right. Okay. So
good.
All right. So one good one, which is kind of related to the one that you already said. Second Skin.
Oh yeah, okay.
So,
Gamor.
Yeah. So
Leggett Gamor.
So I think this is when we talked about Next Generation, I think I did bring up Face of the Enemy. I don't know what it is about these kinds of episodes that I like. Actually, I think I know what it is. But so this is an episode where Kira is kidnapped by Cardassians and they do surgical modification to her. And now she appears to be a Cardassian, and they're telling her this whole story about how she was deep cover.
Like Seska.
Like Seska, had altered memory. She's actually the daughter of a very high-ranking Cardassian. She's in the Obsidian Order. By the way, here's the real Kira Nerys. We've pulled her corpse out of deep storage. You're not Kira. And so then you just see like this massive like Kira going like, no, this isn't true. This is impossible. But then
the Luke Skywalker.
That's exactly why I said it that way. So you have all of that, but you also have like this Cardassian general, who's like, he believes her to be his daughter, and so he's trying to like gently help her remember who she is, who he believes her to be. And so there starts to like build this rapport between Kira and why can't I remember his name?
Leggett Gamor.
Yeah.
Gamor. Yeah.
So
the Kenny Gamor.
So like one of the things about this episode that I really like, and I think it's part of why I really like Face of the Enemy as well, is you get this inside view of the bad guys, but where they're not just mustache twirling villains, and there's complexity, right?
Yeah.
So like in this episode, you have the Obsidian Order is trying to bring down Gamor because they don't like him. And so they're trying to use Kira as like a wedge to like force him to make some decision and get him to out himself, and now they can kill him. That's the whole plan.
Because he's a dissonant.
Yeah, he doesn't like the current government of Cardassia, and so they're trying to do that. In Face of the Enemy, we have it's the unification group, and they're trying to so we have complexity in this thing. It's not a monolith, and I like that. Right, and especially especially in this one, more so than Face of the Enemy, is because we have this deep-seated hatred of and justifiably so to an extent, on Kira's part for the Cardassians, for what they did to Bajor. We see her kind of recognize the humanity, right? The personhood of Leggett Gamor in a way that like helps her see him for who he is, not as a Cardassian, while she still recognizes that, but see him as a father, in a way, a father figure to her, but just she sees him for who he is, as a man, as a father, as like someone who's trying the best that he can, where he is. To the point where, like, at the very end of the episode, like, there's this really awesome scene where he, like, gives her a bracelet.
Isn't it a bracelet or a necklace?
Yeah, it was a bracelet that was his daughter's, because she's dead.
Right.
She got killed while she was undercover on Bajor, or at least that's the story. It never gets like fully revisited, so who knows?
Right, but it's most likely prospect.
We never saw a body, so if like a new series down the road wants to re-explore that and have Nana Visitor playing 2 versions on the same screen, I am all for that. But
that'd be interesting. I agree.
But like, there's this really touching moment between the 2 characters where like there's kind of this father-daughter relationship that has kind of become real after they both have to escape from Cardassia, because he realizes, you're not my real daughter, but they got to know each other over time. And so that was real. And we do get a return to this character later. This isn't a one and done, but there's just some really, really good character development for Kira particularly.
Right. Yeah, agreed.
So
yeah. Excellent. All right. Cheat 1 of 2. And I talk about this just because I remember going through this, watching it live when it first came out. This would be season 5 cliffhanger, beginning of season 6, 7-episode arc. A time to stand through the sacrifice of angels.
Yep.
This was during a time where, yes, there were cliffhangers. We've had TNG cliffhangers. We had the Best of Both Worlds. We had Descent.
Redemption.
We had the Redemption. But we've never really had one that was a more than a two-parter ongoing arc. And of course, that is really what certainly genre storytelling is now. You have like the Marvel shows like Daredevil Born Again, which we're loving right now, is just a story that is taking place over a season and then into another season that continues it in a very intense, unbroken up kind of fashion. But yeah, this strung together, this big, long ongoing story where they didn't wrap things up in 2 episodes. It was by the end of the first one, they were like, we got the station back, because our crew has to flee the station when the Dominion comes on full force.
Yep.
Because our people have created a minefield to prevent more Dominion ships coming through the wormhole in order to bolster the Cardassian government, which has become their ally. The visual of the ship warfare in the last episode in the Sacrifice of Angels, when our crew is fighting to take back Deep Space Nine, it had never been seen before. Practical model work, absolutely incredible. I mean, even the final shot of the season 5 episode where the Defiant and the Rotaran are flying towards a field of vessels heading in the other direction, Starfleet Klingon going on the offensive. This is when I used to tape it and pause. I had to stop that shit and go back.
The ships.
Yeah, and I had to do that even in between the episode of, I think, not the Sacrifice of Angel, but Favor the Bold, which was the second to last in this. When all of the ships left Starbase 375, I had to be, stop, go back. I want to see all the ships pull together and all that. There's a galaxy. There's a bunch of Miranda, which are the Lamps of the Slaughter, because there's a great shot where 2 Miranda-class ships, which is basically, it's the ship from the Wrath of Khan, get blown up. You see, Excelsior-class ships all over the place, and some of the Akira-class other ships that you see.
I think there might be a constellation buried in there somewhere.
It could be. There is, I've never seen it, but powerful, great stuff. A death at the end of it that comes out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
That just really, and I won't spoil it. You may have seen it, maybe you haven't, but my God, if you're going to pick out one to just watch and jump into, it's really not that hard to jump in and watch these 7 episodes and feel like you've watched a film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe it's a sequel to a film, but I feel like there's enough context starting from A Time to Stand that would get you through Sacrifice of Angels, that you feel like you've watched a story, that there's stuff before it that led to it, and there's definitely going to be more story to tell after it, but you feel like you've watched something pretty complete.
It's kind of like if you were to go watch like The Empire Strikes Back or something. Like it is kind of It is kind of a complete film in its own right.
It's very much The Empire Strikes Back of Star Trek's. I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so. Absolutely. All right. What's your? We were going to jump into a bad one and then come back into
my last stinker.
All right. Let's do. Oh, I have a last stinker too. We'll do. So no, we're good. We can. Yeah. Do your stinker. I'll do my stinker. Then we'll come back and finish with good.
This is going to be controversial, and I have my reasons, and I've said them before, but I have to say them again.
Okay.
Far Beyond the Stars.
You're right. Yes, that is very controversial. It's very edgelord.
It is,
because it is so revered.
But I have my reasons, and they're not what everyone's going to fire at me. But my reasons are world building. So it has very, very little to do with the story and the acting. I thought that those were all very, very well done.
Some of the best. Yeah, I'd say.
But similar to like Avery Brooks, to like some of the other episodes that I've pulled out for some of my bottom ones in the other shows, I have to pull out for different reasons, not just like, I don't like, for external reasons. So like, like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, I didn't like because of things that it spawned and some writing ideas that I don't like. So for this one particularly, I don't like the whole thing of making this where all of Star Trek just lives inside Benny's head. And I've never liked that idea, because that was actually going to be the final shot on What You Leave Behind. where it was like Benny writing the last scene on his typewriter and then closing the book, and that's it. And
it's all of St. Elsewhere in a Snow Globe, which I feel like we talked about that before. It's a reference that's not of your ilk, but I explained it in the past. This whole show from the 80s, it was a hospital show that at the end of it appeared it was actually a snow globe that was in the room of a mentally disabled child played by Chad Allen, who was later in TNG as beginning of season 4, the Suddenly Human. It was that teenage kid as a boy. Was a mentally disabled kid who had St. Elsewhere in a Snow Globe.
So it's just
still a Star Trek connection.
Yeah, so there's some really interesting stuff. I do think that some of it's a little heavy-handed. So if you want me to like say something about the episode content itself, that I do think it's a little heavy-handed. It's not horrifically so, like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. But I don't like the willingness to be like, oh yeah, this is all fake, and so we can do whatever we want with it. Like Star Trek is internally consistent for the most part. There are inconsistencies, I know that. But part of the conceit of a fictional world is saying, at least for the characters, this is a real thing. This is a universe that exists. And Far Beyond the Stars doesn't just push the envelope, it rips it wide open. And I don't like that. I've never liked that. This episode, for as much of other good things that it does, I can't watch it because of that reason. Part drives me nuts. Everything else is fine.
It breaks your world.
It breaks the world. And if you've listened to this show enough, you know that's something that I just really don't like. I don't like when people break the world building. And so
that's the hill you'll die on. Well, this is a lower hanging piece of fruit for my last bad one. The lower hanging piece of fruit, without a doubt, is that season 6 Profit and Lace.
Yeah.
Ferengi episodes fun, important to provide comic relief in an otherwise very dark show at a lot of times, but the slapstickiness and Quark with boobs, no thank you. It's too much. It takes no stakes down to splinters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just it's just not happening.
It also
at
felt
all.
like he's in a fat suit, not just like something where they're attempting to do something different.
He's overly chubby, and it just absolutely just does not need to be that way. So your Ferengi episodes, I would say we're at like a 75-25 good to bad, and this is part of that 25. I would say, without a doubt. So all right, what's your last swinger?
My last good one, I did cheat a little bit on this one because it's a two-parter, but it's not a exact two-parter because they are different names, but the story arc that begins with Homefront.
Oh gosh, yes.
So this is the episode.
Can't wait to talk about it in depth when we get there.
It's a good one. So this is the episode where we get the beginning of like the changeling scare in Deep Space Nine, where Cisco and Odo are called back to Earth. This is also, I believe, where we get to meet Ben's father the first time.
Yeah, you're right. Oft talked about, and at one point they changed the continuity where he was dead because he had some crippling neurological disease. Because Cisco was talking about like, I remember when my father had such and such, and he lost all his strength, and they changed that. I assume they changed it to his grandfather.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about that exact. I don't remember, but yeah. So we get Cisco's dad. We get the Creole restaurant, which is just really fun. But and it's also just really funny that he's played by
Brock Peters, the late Brock Peters,
who also was Admiral Cartwright in the TOS films, which is just it's just ironically hilarious. It's not like, don't read into it at all. It's just funny.
And Brock Peters, a quick sidebar, was also Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird, the classic film from the 1940, early 50s, I think, is when that film came out. Yeah.
Great job there too. But anyway, so we get this whole thing where Cisco and Odo are brought to Starfleet Command to help them determine if the Dominion have any changeling spies. And so we kind of get this commentary on like McCarthyism and totalitarianism, more military juntaism, more like. So we get like the Admiral taking over. he's kind of bullying the Federation president to do certain things, and there's just some really, really horrible decisions that get made. Towards the end, we actually get the Lakota firing on the Defiant on its way to Earth.
Great sequence. Really, I loved really well that. Beautiful shot. And the Lakota being an Excelsior class ship, but an Enterprise B variant, that's what the model was at that point, because they had stuck the bits onto because there's some, and they couldn't get them off. Or something. I think I read something both like
models, that. So I think the Lakota numbers are still on it.
Exactly.
But so there's all of that, but there's a lot of like discussion of like loyalty and reason and like how does this make sense, and there's Sisko trying to prove that the Admiral's just being, McCarthy, where he's scare tactics to get things under control and have power. But you also get like this big long line of like justification of why he's doing what he's doing. And so there's a lot of interesting political machinations going on. And so I won't spoil everything because, it's worth watching, but there's a lot of political dynamics, in-world political dynamics that work really, really well together. And it's just a masterfully crafted two-parter that has like repercussions way down the road. So it's just really, really well done. And also just has some really, really good character moments, particularly between Sisko and Odo, but also Sisko and his father.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, I'll take us home with the Taking Us Home. This is Cheat Code Part 2. Ending of the series. It's either 8 or 9 episodes. I didn't go back and count, but it's the end of the series, 9-episode arc. That's Penumbra Through What You Leave Behind, which is of course a double length episode anyway. So this is a lot of content, much like with my last one. Being that this is super consistent with especially all genre shows, I'll go back and refer to the MCU shows. You get WandaVision season 1 is it's all one story, or Hawkeye is all one story, even though it's week to week. This was really groundbreaking in 98, 99. I think this might have all aired in 1999 probably, but it was produced in 1998. A really cohesive link to the end of the war arc, and I wrote that had more twists than a pretzel factory, because at the beginning of it you had Damar, who was the de facto head of the Cardassian government, hating his life, and it kind of reminds me of Pete Hegseth, but we don't need to talk about that, just drinking himself to death before he finally figures out, you know what, there's got to be a better way. I'm going to get into the revolution business, but I can only do that if I get help from the Federation. They send me Kira and Odo and Garrick, and there's this whole arc, and then you also get that balance with Worf making his peace with Ezri Dax, who is now the new Dax symbiote because his, Jadzia was killed off, and then twists and turns in the final episode that you just didn't see coming. Like how are they really? They wrap up the war, sure, that's unexpected, but how are we going to leave these characters behind? Well, at the end of it, the band breaks up and Sisko goes to join the Prophets. And we learned in Starfleet Academy, set several hundred years later, that he never did come back, which is wild. But this subverted any expectations, but for the expectations that I expected it to be great, and it was great. So I would say if you're going to do DS9, and you really want to lock into what, again, feels like a nice long movie, this wrap-up, season 7 was great. They barely missed a beat. There wasn't necessarily a really bad episode somewhere better than others. We had a couple of Ferengi episodes that were fun, but this is flawless to me, this arc. And again, it's either 8 or 9 episodes. I might have missed that part. But it was pretty terrific.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrific stuff.
I think when we were talking about these in just going through the shows, it was always really hard to like pick a worst when we were doing these matches.
It'll get easier when we get to Voyager because they got some stinkers, but they have some good ones too. I don't want to put everybody down. It might be a little bit easier with Enterprise too, but we'll see when we get there. All right. Well, that does wrap us up for this episode. Guy Peter said, "Oh, this will be a short one because we only have one random episode to talk about." But we ran essentially the same night. We get the same 90-minute time run. We very often get a little bit over. But anyway, Peter, where do people find you out there if they want to drill you down about Far Beyond the Stars? Where do they get you,
bro? You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most social media. I don't say a whole lot, but if you poke at me, I might say something. You can find me on our Discord also. You can also find me at ELH's Twitch, YouTube, and Discord, where we do Star Trek adventures and other role-playing games. And you can find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Oh, yes. In an interview with James Heaney, who was a collaborator of ours, you guys had a chat about that recently.
On Excelsior. We had a chat.
Yeah, it'll show up on the spotlight a little bit later this year. I can be found at all the social medias for not only Secret Friends Unite, with the exception of X. We don't mess with X, and I'm not really so big on TikTok anymore for a lot of the same reasons. But anyway, Secret Friends Unite is there, and also I am there personally. I really post more as myself. I am at the C3THE CEETHREE, where I'm posting fun stuff and talking about geek this and that. I also have my little 3-minute dining room chats where in 3 minutes or less I tell you about something I'm enjoying that hasn't made it into any of our regular shows. So find us there, both on all of those socials and then also on our YouTube channel. YouTube channel is also where you find video of our great spotlight interviews. We talk to creators all the time, and also audio of all of our regular podcasts. You can also find all of our regular podcasts on our website, secretfriendsunite.com, and on your podcast catcher of choice. As always, if you want to talk to us, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com is a great place to drop us an email. Talk to us about something you're enjoying or what you think about what we talked about on any of our shows, and we might use it on the program. But with that, I'm going to give it a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Great to have you. I'm going to tell you as always that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.